Speaker, well, the Minister and the Secretary of State have often used the word emergency for the state of the prison population, and I've asked the Secretary of State, how long will it take to deport all of the foreign criminals clogging up our jails? And it seems to me this is a moment for the Secretary of State to say, yes, this is an emergency, deport a lot of them, free up about 10,000 places and help overcome this crisis.
We've deported more foreign national offenders in 12 months than the previous government did in the previous 12 months, and we're continuing to work hard with the Home Office to deport foreign national offenders. But we'll never be able to do that on the scale that is necessary to address the challenges we face within our prisons at this point in time.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. On a recent visit to Featherstone Prison near Wolverhampton, I came across several prisoners who had been recalled and were waiting up to a year to have their cases progressed. Does the Minister agree that by limiting the recall sentence, making greater use of technology to punish offenders in the community and to make the probation service more effective will not only result in better rehabilitation of prisoners and to reduce reoffending, but it will also ease the overcrowding that we have in our prisons due to the efforts of the previous government?
These are actions that we have to take, as he rightly points out, in order to address the challenges we face in the system now, to make the system work better and work better for victims and for protecting the public.
Sir Desmond Sway.
Given the nature of domestic abusers, many will welcome the opportunity to give another twist to the knife at a mere cost of 28 days. Hasn't he just presented them with a practical opportunity?
I've already gone through the exclusions to this very carefully, and I've emphasised the importance of good professional bodies continuing to apply proper risk assessments, and where those risk assessments say that a standard recall is more appropriate than a fixed term recall, that will happen.
Andy MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's a bit rich for the party opposite to be critical when they left the criminal justice system in total meltdown. But would my old friend agree with me that tagging is an important part of the resources available in protecting the public from criminals? And perhaps he also saw the Channel 4 Dispatches programme showing the contract given to Serco by the party opposite totally and utterly failing. Will he tell the House whether he has confidence in Serco to deliver that contract? And if not, will he remove them and bring that service back into public control?
Tagging, it's absolutely clear that the technology has huge potential. A recent study has shown reoffending down 20% for offenders wearing curfew tags, but he's right to draw attention to the concerns about the contract. Serco's performance is improving, but it's still not at an acceptable level. Dispatches reporting was done last year when we knew there were serious issues and applied financial penalties against Serco, who were given the contract on the previous government. If their performance drops again, all options remain on the table.
Steve Barclay.
This announcement is a further illustration of why this House should be legislating to remove all impediments to the deportation of foreign national offenders. But he said in his reply to the Shadow Justice Secretary a moment ago that victims of this policy should be kept informed, and yet he refused to say whether the Department has conducted an impact assessment. What new information is he willing to commit today to publishing each month so that victims are indeed kept informed?
Victims absolutely need to be kept informed. We continue to work with victims groups and victims commissioners to make sure that is the case.
Lawrence Turner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In separate cases, two families in my constituent lost loved ones. They were murdered by offenders who were out on remand and who never should have been. Will ministers agree to meet with me and, if they so wish, those families, so that they can have some assurance that lessons have been learned from these cases and that other families are not placed in that same horrendous situation?
I'm very sorry to hear about the case he alludes to, and I'm very happy to meet with him to take the matter further.
John Lamont.
Thank you very much. I want to return to victims. The Victims Commissioner has warned that freeing prisoners early who have been shown to pose a risk to the public by reoffending will place victims and the public at unnecessary risk of harm. The Domestic Abuse Commissioner has said it's simply unacceptable. So what discussions did the Government have with these two commissioners before making this announcement?
We speak to the Victims Commissioners regularly, and my honourable friend is speaking to them later today.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Justice Secretary could have chosen to deport more of the thousands of offenders in our jails. She could have maxed out court sitting days. She could have repurposed buildings or procured temporary facilities to hold offenders. Why has she instead chosen to release serious offenders, including domestic abusers, free from jail earlier, instead with no consideration for the victims?
This is not about releasing people earlier from prison. No, it's not. This is about people that have already served their sentence in prison and are out, and they are out in the community, and if they breach a condition of their licence, they are returned to prison. And he might well ask the question of why the government that he supported didn't take any of the measures that he's spelt out. We are the government that's inherited the mess that his government left us, and we are the government that's taking the decisions to ensure that the unconscionable threat of having a prison system that is not able to lock up dangerous people is addressed.
Karen Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Ministers seem to have been deliberately vague as to the breadth and number of domestic abuse offenders that will be eligible for this. Now, for such a big announcement, I know that the government and the department will have done a lot of work in terms of looking at the eligibility and who will be eligible. Can the Minister set out to the House the exact number of domestic abuse offenders that will be eligible for this scheme?
I hear his question, and I will write to him.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The first duty of government is to keep the public safe, and I recently met with a constituent whose ex-husband is serving a prison sentence having raped her twice. Despite being in prison, her convicted ex-husband continues to have indirect access to their children. My constituent thinks that this is wrong. I think that this is wrong. Does the Minister agree with me that convicted violent and sexual offenders should serve maximum possible custodial sentences and lose parental access rights?
He will be aware that the Victims and Courts Bill is about to go through Parliament, and it's that sort of issue that we rightly looked at through that bill's passage.
Sir Ashley Fox.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. One of the reasons that our prisons are so full is that we have more than 10,000 foreign nationals in our prisons. What steps is the Minister taking to deport them?
Well, I say gently to the honourable member that we have deported more foreign nationals in the first year of our watch than the previous government did on the years of its watch. And he's right, we have to continue to roll up our sleeves and get on with the job.
Lincoln Job.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister has been slightly equivocal in answering the question I'm just about to ask, and has been asked it on two previous occasions, so third time lucky. Prior to announcing this policy change yesterday, did the government meet and consult with the Domestic Abuse Commissioner about this policy change? Yes or no? Yes or no?
The Commissioner has been spoken to by the team. And on the issue of impact assessments, just to be clear that when we come to this statutory instrument, the impact assessment will be published.
Ben Obsi-Jecti.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The new measures announced by the Justice Secretary suggest the government have learnt nothing from the furore and loss of public confidence that followed last year's early release debacle. This is the same Justice Secretary who, along with the Victims Minister in her place, signed the protest letter that led to convicted child rapist Fabian Henry being removed from a deportation flight, and the Prime Minister signed that letter too. So why do the Justice Secretary and her ministers appear to have such scant regard for the impact that the management of prisoner releases will have on the victims of those crimes, when we see her implement measures that will actually act as a deterrent to recidivism rather than a minor inconvenience to the continuation of a criminal career?
Minister.
We're committed to get this right. The early release scheme that the previous government put in place did not have the same exceptions that we had in our early release scheme for the sort of